Back. Thank you guys for the patience. We're going to be diving straight on into some coaching with a Diamond 3 Zerg. Looks like we'll be looking at ZvT for the most part, but we'll see how it goes. My man. Jake would do that. Oh, was it me casting No Regret, like cheesing Dark or something? And he's like, Pig, can you coach me? Oh, so silly. Let me get this coaching going. Let me get him on the call. Here we go. Yo, yo, yo.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how you doing, man?
What's up, bud?
I am doing good. How about you, mate? Been playing a lot?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot, and I've actually recently dropped about 200 MMR.
Okay, cool. Catching you at the downswing. Obviously, it's like the graph of everybody's ladder experience is like that constant up and down, right? So right now we're on the low end of one of those curves, which is all good. Which is no worries, because it's almost identical to what your MMR was a month ago when we did our last coaching session, I believe.
Yeah, we did that last coaching session, and I immediately, just from ZvP alone, jumped like 100 MMR. And then I played a bunch of good games, and I hit like 3,700. Was looking forward to Diamond 2, and then just like the last 2-3 days I've dropped.
No worries. I think that's good then. A couple days dropping is absolutely no worries. Is there any specific matchup you've been playing a lot the last few days? You've obviously identified ZvT versus Bio.
Yeah,
is that just something you've been meaning to work on, or do you think that's something which is kind of a lot of your losses recently?
It's something that I've lost a good couple games to, but my ZvT and ZvZ are struggling. ZvT I feel worse in right now, though.
Cool. Just double checking. Did we send through payment for this session yet? I'm just opening
I
all
sent
that
that
up.
earlier.
Just today?
Yeah, like 3 hours ago.
Awesome. All right, I'll tick that off right now while we get set up. Just ticking that off now, because I always forget to at the end of the sesh.
Good.
And then I come back a few days later and I'm like, hey, did this come through? And then it's always harder to find it later. Thank you for that. Awesome. Okay, I will check that off in 1 second. Ugh, my browser's lagging like crazy. Hurry up, Chrome. There we go. All good. All ticked off. Fantastic. All right. Great. Okay, so we want to understand the balance between macro and micro while facing aggressive Terran bio tank. Want to figure out when to get a macro hatch. Should we start with a replay of one of your recent games?
Yes, I have a couple actually saved and ready.
Awesome. Let's dive straight in then. Are we playing Hydrabane?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly? All right. Are we playing against a lot of BC battle mech kind of play or BC
not
bio?
Too much, actually. It's mostly just been like straight tank bio off 2 base, solid push. I'll defend the first push, and then they somehow have like 50 Marines just ready behind it, and I have nothing ready.
All right. Promote to lobby host. Let's see what's going on, and let's...
So I think this one was actually a win, and this one was against BC's, actually.
Okay.
If I remember.
Nice. Well, I guess, okay, so what we're going to try and do here, from the sounds of it, is we need to basically solidify the build, right? We need to firm up your build. We need to try to kickstart your workers. Big thing, I've been doing quite a bit of ZvT coaching lately, so let's jump straight to jotting down a couple of benchmark goals for what we want to be getting towards. Nice to start the session with those already in mind. And that's going to be 4 minutes 30, 8 drones on third base, 5 minutes 30, 16 drones on third base. So basically trying to make sure we're saturating and really making use of the minerals on that third base as early as possible. Even at a point where we might not feel as comfortable kind of covering it, right? Obviously trying to get out there and work on connecting the creep to the bases, defending with queens, and kind of getting in front early, as opposed to what I'm seeing from most Zergs, which is us not saturating that third because we're a little bit paranoid about the different things Terran can throw at us. Do you reckon that fits you, or?
I can see that, yeah. I feel like I play pretty greedy, because I build units pretty much as late as I feel I can. I don't really sit there with just 20 lings, usually. This game, this is one of my weirder ZvTs, actually, because if I remember right, I scout he's going BC, so I immediately kind of turtle up on around 3 base, get a spire up and just shut down the first like 2 BCs, and from there it kind of spiraled towards me winning.
Okay, cool. So, if we scroll right down in your document to page 8, end of page 7, start of page 8, we've got a build order. It says current ZvT. Now, obviously, this was a while ago, so I just want you to tell me how accurate this is to what you're currently doing.
ZvT 17 half, 17 cast, 16 pull. Yeah, that's about it.
A new queen.
If the Terran doesn't have... I love that you even had a one base BC rule in there.
Because at that point in time, it was so common.
That must have been happening a lot. Like, yeah, I see that. I'm like, oh, this happened to you like 10 times in a week.
Yeah. I think it happened like 3 times back to back in a night, and I just got super pissed and kicked myself. The only thing different about this is I'm really not doing the 20 lane. I'm just kind of seeing what the Terran's up to and trying to be greedy.
Okay. So the big thing we're missing here, and the big thing which most players are, is we're not, we don't have firm queen timings, and our third's quite late, and we're going to kind of end up struggling to get queens out to defend things like Hellion pressure because we don't have the queen timings defined. So our build's a little bit loose, and against Terran, it's so important to get early creep tumors at a set time, get our queens up and rely on them, because anytime we rely on banelings, it becomes a bit hit or miss, because Hellions can kind of poke in and out, and we can't really guard our creep tumors at all with Ling Bane. Ling's Bane's, it's all about surrounding the Hellions or nothing, right? And because we're not building a fast queen count, we can see, for instance, in this replay, we're going fast Evo Chamber, fast Bane layers, both super duper fast, super fast gases. This third base is going to take us forever to get saturated. And that means we're just not going to have as much to go head to head with the Terran. So remember I said 4 minutes 30, we want to have that third with 8 drones on it. And 5:30, we want to have 16 drones there. Let's compare that, because this is a zero pressure game. So these are the sort of games where you especially want to have that, right? Because if we just take a snapshot of the Terran base, third CC, double upgrades really early, super defensive, built a bunker. He's just camping, right? He's just macroing up. Macro Terran. So because there's no pressure, these are the games where we could even go beyond those benchmarks, because there isn't even Hellion pressure. I don't think there was a Reaper, or there might have been, but that was it.
There was, but he died pretty quick.
Yeah, no libs, right? No banshees, no BCs, nothing at all. So we could have...
I thought this guy was going BC.
Gone even beyond them. I think it's a different game. Maybe he goes for it later. It'll be a really friggin'
either
weird
way,
build.
it's still a game I bookmarked.
Yeah. So we're making tons of Ling Bane, but we don't have a lot of workers. And this is the sort of game we want to push that. So I think generally giving us more structure in terms of that, relying on more queens is going to be really important as well. Because looking at this game, we don't really know what he's doing. Oh, actually, no, your Overlord did go through. So you did get that. But imagine that Overlord got denied. You don't have any queens already built. So you're going to be super reliant on spores. And not having 7 or 8 queens kind of ready when BCs arrive makes your life a nightmare. Gives them so much freedom to move around. Whereas if you can just bring 6 queens over, 5 queens over, and get rid of those BCs, it makes a really big difference. And Hydra's, while not terrible against BCs, definitely aren't the counter either, because they're very fragile and they don't have enough range to really kill the BCs without getting gunned down. So what I see here is a lot of potential for us to struggle against harassment. Someone who does really good Hellion harassment in and out with non-stop Hellion production we're going to struggle with, because Ling Bane can't really deal with that unless we surround him, which is inconsistent. So what I'm thinking we want to focus on is supercharging your mineral count, getting better creep spread, because you're going a very creep spread focused style. Hydra Ling Bane is all about your creep spread and trying to work those fundamentals up. Now, if you're not too keen on that, it doesn't sound exciting, I would rather we move away from Hydra Bane, because Hydra Bane is a real defensive, long-term sort of macro strategy. I would rather, if we don't want to kind of work on creep spread and more minerals, we do something like really cool, like we start mixing in Roach timings, Ravager Ling timings, maybe bring some queens across the map, Nidus Worms, Roaches swapping into Mutas and then back into a big Roach Ravager timing. Lots of like kind of cheekier sort of play would be what I'd kind of focus on if we don't want to kind of get really involved in the fundamentals of like covering the map in creep and making 70 drones and that sort of Zerg versus Terran. So, I mean, what floats your boat? What do you see yourself as wanting to work on and improve at?
Well, I definitely started the Hydra Bane just because it was the style I saw people using when I got into the game. It was the big thing for a while, so it was what I learned because it was what I saw everyone using. I personally enjoy
That
you
mineral
doing like
field's gone.
Mutiling
Don't
Bane
spend it.
more.
Evolution complete.
I don't see it as that viable anymore.
Especially right now where so many people are playing mech. It's not really something you can play as consistently. So depending on your meta, you can definitely go for that. But I mean, even with Mutiling Bane, it's still a very macro-centered style unless you're like super kind of like rushing mutas and then diving in and doing lots of run-bys and trying to kill them. Like it's even though the composition changes, like the tech unit changes, it's still a very similar style to what you're doing now. So I mean, is it the macro focused play we want to work on, or is it the more aggressive play?
Mineral field
I think I'd rather work on the more aggressive play.
Okay. All right. So yeah, in that case, we definitely want to try and kind of focus on doing stuff to the Terran and playing a very cheeky style. Like if we had to think of who our pro gamer spirit animal would be, probably like a Bly is someone we could draw a lot of inspiration from. I don't know if Railgan's still streaming and playing. He's like just a GMEU player who does really weird Zerg strats, but is very good at leveraging tech against an opponent in ways which no one else does. And that's what, your cheesy plays are generally about. So, I mean, we can work on things like it's a gigantic map pool. That just clicked in my brain. I'm like, the map pool has just changed so much. It's a bit harder to do really fast roach timings across the map on most of these maps. Yeah.
I remember this game.
So just to be clear, what I'm kind of thinking about is like more cheesy play, right? Like roach timings, muta timings, rarely going past 60 workers in the game.
Totally fine.
And hitting them with that? Okay, cool. All right, so mutas you said you really enjoy, so let's try and base it around muta play as much as possible. So we can either do... All right. Because basically I was going to have to completely revamp your ZvT from the ground up if we were going to keep playing the same style.
I've never been comfortable with my ZvT.
All right.
I'll play roaches if you think that'd be better. I don't mind playing roach either.
Roaches and mutas is like the loveliest, dirtiest composition because they both require very different responses from Terran. So tech switching between those two is very nice. Roach Ravager can't... timings are one of the most powerful things we can do as a Zerg player. The problem is tanks tend to do very well against it if they just kind of hang on and build up their army enough. But that's where mutas come in. Mutas force out things like turrets, widow mines. They encourage your opponent to build Thors and mines, things which aren't good against roaches. And often opens up roach timings. It gives you the chance to kind of get those mutas out really fast, dive in and do damage. Lots of cool little things that we can do. So, there's a few ways we can do it. We can open with... so the new plan is roach and muta shenanigans. Niduses are an option available. Mostly finishing with roach ravager. So, how can we get there? We can basically go...
That field's been mined out.
Fast roach pressures. So there's a 3 roach pressure. So it's two slowlings to try and pull the Reaper home and slow down the command center. Into 3 roaches, into 2 base muta. Into 55 drone, 5 gas, 1-1 roach speed, roach ravager timer. That's one game plan we can follow. What's another fast roach pressure we can open with? There's like these kind of like hatch first, 16 pull, firstlings on natural, sneak around the edge of the map. Sneak around the Reaper to try and distract. Roach Warren goes down immediately, hidden in back of main. And we try to sneak 6 roaches, morph 2 into ravagers across for a nice pressure.
Mineral field depleted.
I was doing that build for a little bit.
And then we can go into mutas behind that as well. And then into a roach ravager timing. Like, there's a lot of these really silly little builds. So yeah, hatch, the idea with that one is because we make sure we're going 16 pool right on time immediately, and we go like 16 hatch, 16 pool, whatever. we can immediately, so we'd go 16 hatch first, 16 pool, and the very first lings on the natural. So as soon as that hatch finishes, we morph those lings, and we should be able to get those out before the Reaper arrives, especially on this big map pool. And the idea is they very rarely dive right into the back of your main with the first Reaper. If that starts happening a lot in the meta, build doesn't work. Because they see the Roach Warren, but otherwise it's just a 6 Roach pressure. We can also do, you know, just your stock standard Ravagerling timings, right? So like, you know, 32 drones, 2 gases, 8 Roach/Ravagers, and mass speedling. Droning third and going into delayed meters behind it. Same thing. Still try to finish with the Roach. These are just some of the things. The last one I want to lay down as an option here. 2 base muter.
You know.
So just rushing to the Mutalisk. Now that's something where I don't have a set build for it. You probably want to kind of be able to wall off to stop a Hellion run by. Like I just played a 2 base muter player before. Just had no defense. They had like a handful of slow lings. And I just like, you know, ran in with my first 4 Hellions and killed a lot of drones. And really, they really disrupted them. Knocked them down 10 workers. And when you're knocked down from 35 to 25 workers, it's pretty friggin' bad. So we can wall off with like an Evo and a Roach Warren. As long as we don't go too fast, we can get like, you know, we can skip ling speed or we can still get ling speed. There's a few different ways we can do it to make ourselves a bit more solid, or we can just be a greedy shithead with it, and maybe people just aren't diving their first Hellions fast enough and you get away with it every game. We'll figure out a technique for that if we want to do that. But what appeals to you most? Opening with Roach pressure into muters, or a big Ravager Ling into muters, or just rush to the Mutalisks as quickly as possible?
I mean, the Roach Ravager option, that's a build I'm already somewhat familiar with, so I'm comfortable with that.
Which version do you think is most exciting to you? Because I mean, it's very easy to change these openings up. Do you want to do the hatch first, the pool first version? In which one of these appeals to you?
Pool first is interesting because I was working on a pool first build for a little while, but I couldn't quite work it out.
Okay, let's do that. That's the classic Railgun build. I know that build like the back of my hand.
Word. I'm comfortable with it then. Let's learn it.
Cool. All right, hop out of that replay. If we can get someone in chat to help us out, that would be great. We don't need to, because I can just, you know, we can just do it against no one, and or an easy AI, and it's fine. But if there is anyone who's around Diamond 3, anyone around that 3,500 MMR mark Terran player able to help us out, please do hop in chat channel Piggy. I think Dr. Ryan actually... Oh yeah, you can create, by the way. You're still the lobby host. So I've just suggested Dr. Ryan. I think Dr. Ryan does offer us a fair bit of Terran at Masters 3. Okay, well, I'll just get him to go easy on us then until we find an actual main race Terran player who is a little bit closer. But you can invite him to party, and then you can create map there.
Sure.
Your choice. Guys in chat, anyone who is a Diamond 3 Terran, please do consider hopping on. You can learn how to defend some sneaky Roach shenanigans, learn how to defend some muters. Good chance to learn how to stop some cheeky Zergs. Thank you very much, Jay Sniperton, for gifting that sub to Sil KR. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support.
Let's do this.
Cool.
So our build order's pool first, right?
Yep. So we're going to do a 16 pool. Yep.
Cool.
And then we're going to go 17 hatch, and we're going to drop a gas right after, or 18 hatch actually, 18 hatch. Then we're going to drop a gas right after that hatch. So it's hatch goes down at the natural, then we drop the gas in the main. So this is a very minimal pressure.
Gotcha.
No, you're going to need to grab a drone and send it down rather than waiting for that one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. With these sort of pull first builds, always better to just grab it at like 150 minerals. Makes it a little smoother. So we're going to drop the hatch and then immediately drop the gas in the main afterwards.
Gotcha.
All right, so you can build one more drone. And no more drones just yet. So that pool's going to finish. We want to drop a roach warren immediately. So send the drone to build the roach warren and start 2 lings actually as well. So we should have money for both of those. No queens straight away. So should have already had the roach warren in position, and we should have put it behind the minerals rather than here. That's okay. We need a pause?
Game
All good.
paused.
I think someone's kids just rocked up. Dad! He's like, I'm getting coached. I'm learning how to kill Terran. Old Power says, I'm a Diamond 3 Terran. Chat channel Piggy. Batbot as well. If you guys could open chat channel Piggy, we'll grab you for the next game. We really appreciate your help. It's probably only go for about 10 minutes.
Sorry about that, mate.
No worries. Okay, so you've built 4 lings. We only need 2. 4 doesn't matter. Not a big deal.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant 2 larvae.
No. Just one. That's all good.
Resumed.
So we want to start the queen next. And guys on gas. So we forgot to put guys on gas. Let's go. Drones. And we go overlord and drones. Or we can go drone and then overlords either way. Lings need to go across the map. And you want to queue those lings around the Reaper path. Not sure if you have experience with that, but it's pretty basic. Just click them down one side of the map and then into the natural. Overlord is already on the way. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just saving our lava now, and we're going to build 3 roaches. So we're going to build 2 in the main and then 1 from the natural. So build the ones in the main first.
So I'm building, you said roaches, yeah?
Yep, 3 roaches. 2 in the main and then 1 from the natural as well. That's going to pop out in just a sec. All right. And we want to rally those straight to our opponent's natural, okay?
Heard.
Behind this, inject, drone.
I still haven't built queens. Oh, wait, I built one queen.
You just built zerglings rather than
You're
roaches.
engaging
Yeah,
the opponent.
I accidentally... Oh, god dang it. I almost clicked the hotkey. I meant to click the right thing.
It's all good. Let's pop out real quickly. We'll just restart it because not having those roaches, even though he's kind of overreacting here and stuff, that's all fine. We might be able to grab a player of the right skill level to see, but that's fine. The 3 roaches is all about just forcing an overreaction anyway. And it's not as good in the current map pool, this build order, but I still think we can get people to just freak the hell out, and we can even like adjust this to literally make it a build where we like, if the roach warren gets scouted, we just cancel it. We don't do anything with it or something like that, or we just build 1 roach or no roaches. We can come up with all sorts of ways to adjust this. This is how cheesy play works. Anyone who's been able to help, can you guys please shout out in the chat channels? Because Dr. Ryan is a bit too good for us. So it's always a bit inorganic. So I've just suggested a Barcode, who is one of the players who wanted to help us out in Diamond 3. And you can just host up a map again, get it going. You are still in charge.
There we go.
All right. Sweet as.
Okay, let's not build just links this time.
Yeah, so you only need 1 pair of zerglings and the roach warren immediately. You want to like, as that pool's almost finished, we have that drone like waiting to put that roach warren down. Like everything with this build is kind of like got to be real tight down to the second. This is what cheesy builds are great for teaching us, is every second matters. So
Good luck, have fun.
stuff. 16 pool, 18 hatch, 17 gas right after it. Let's get going. Beautiful. Looking good. Can send that drone down to the natural in a sec. Right after that hatch goes down, we'll put the gas down.
And then I build two drones, yeah?
Yeah.
And two.
Better if the Rotron goes behind the mineral line in future, away from the opponent. Not a big deal though. 2 Zerglings, remember, is the most important thing there. 2 Zerglings, go, go, go. And cue those straight across the map. Those should be control grouped and rallied immediately around the edge of the map and down to the natural. Beautiful. So what are we doing behind that queen? Start that queen up.
And
Beautiful.
more drone?
Yep. So we can drone to 22 and then build it up.
Overlords.
Or Overlord. Just go Overlord
Okay,
straight away. I think we might have been slightly slow on something. I think normally we can squeeze the drone and then the Overlord. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, we want to go
I think
3
I was
roaches.
slow on one of my drones.
Yeah, probably. So lava production was just slightly late. Doesn't matter. So roaches. So 2 from the main and then 1 from the natural as this Overlord pops.
I actually hit the roach key this time.
Yep. And then once that roach starts from the natural, what are we doing behind it? Another Overlord and drones, okay?
A new queen has
We can
emerged.
try and get this queen to engage the Reaper. Hopefully he fucks off. So rally those roaches across the map. They should have already been rallied. You still haven't set hatchery rally points, so got to get those rally points and drones, overlords, drones. We haven't started the second queen yet, so you always want to start that second queen as soon as you got the cash for it. Pretty much as soon as the first one's finishing.
Your forces are under attack.
And your 2-lings, yeah, you just click on the marine and stop microing it after that. So 2-lings beat a marine pretty handily. So if they've gone a marine, you just click on it and that's fine. But for now, drones, overlords, drones. All right, so 3 minutes 15, we want to take a second gas. And we want to drop a lair as well, okay? So let's drop a second gas. Let's start that lair. And after the lair starts, just keep droning and building overlords. Now our roach is going to try to be annoying, micro them for a few
A
seconds.
new queen has emerged.
So, good stuff. Behind this, you want to build overlords with your production while you're microing the roaches. Just try to build overlords so that we're not supply blocked. So 1 SV, overlords, not drones. That's something you've always got to remember. You just built drones, yeah. Is if you can just build a few overlords and a few drones while pressuring.
I don't want to go
macro's
up that
gonna be-
ramp, do I?
Oh, you can look, you can poke, but you don't want to actually commit up there. So let's leave now with the roaches, send the roaches all the way home, and go back in macro. Okay, so keep droning, building more OVs. Oh, you've got plenty of OVs actually, just drones. So the next part of the build is obviously when that layer finishes, we want to drop a spire. So we can already get the drone in position to build that spire. And as our natural gets saturated, as our 2 bases get saturated, our main's a bit low on workers, and we accidentally built another roach here, but that's okay. So we want to build that spire. So we should already have had the drone in position. Come on, drop that spire. The second the layer finishes, we want to be doing that. Yep. And your main's undersaturated, so you got to fix your rally points. There we go. All right, so you're saturated. What do you do next? Third base. So it's third base, and then you go for the 2 gases on your natural. This is important. If you go for those gases before you're saturated, some people are like, I'm going mutas, I need gas. You will never get your third base up. And your ability to do a 3 base roach push is going to suck really badly. So keep droning for now, this is all good. You did pull your roaches home, which is great. If you can, if you want, you can make an overseer, but you don't really need to because you can have mutas to scout soon enough. Just start saturating those gases. And if you're ever worried about a push, you can make roach speed and more roaches and delay your mutas. But usually we're just going to try to build 4 or 5, basically get 5 mutas out as soon as the spire's done. And we want to build up to 6 or potentially 7 mutas. 5 is the magic count because that one-shot's an SCV. But if we get 6 or 7, it means we can lose 1 or 2. So you see, as long as we've got 500 gas, that's great. We can also start an Evo chamber right now. And I love that you've got plenty of overlords free. Or actually double Evo is normally what we'd go for. But mutas most importantly. And yeah, double Evo is probably a bit better. Because Carapace and range, both really good upgrades for roaches against Terran.
Okay. Should I start looking towards my roach speed?
Yep. So we're going to just stop at those 6 mutas, which is fine. We should have those rallied across the map. Yeah, you should have rallied those the moment you built them across the map. That's fine. And we should be droning that third. Now you're on 4 gases. We want 1 more gas and about 10 drones on that third mineral line. That's it.
Gotcha.
So we want to go about, from what you've started building, maybe 5, 6, 7 more drones at most on the board. Queued up. What's your main base? Get your roaches up there. Let's go defend. Roaches and mutas, go, go. You can dive your mutas into his main mineral line at the same time as your roaches defend this. Just keep building drones to defend. Move your roaches to respond. Click your mutas into his main mineral line. If your opponent's microing this, good chance you're going to find an opening in his base. So you're not going to micro those mutas. You're going to focus on the defense for now. But now we can try to multitask it. So we'll go glance at the mutas now that we've cleaned up this drop. Okay, it's looking good. Let's run them away. Let's pull those mutas out and fix our macro for now, okay?
Okay.
Fix your saturation. Yeah. So grab drones from the main. Come on, stop looking at the mutas. Yeah, you gotta put guys back on gas in your main and natural and just put them all back to work.
Complete.
We want to start 1-1 upgrades and just build only roaches from here. So tons of overlords, tons of roaches. Now you queued your mutas all the way home. Never do that. Whenever you pull out of the main, you queue them to rotate through kind of the middle of the map and then come around the left-hand side of the natural. So you always queue your mutas, so while you're macroing, they're getting in position to attack from a new angle that they haven't attacked from before. That way, you're automatically 0 APM, you're actually backstabbing them while macroing. So tons of overlords, you need to be building non-stop overlords and hitting your injects, and trying just to build tons of roaches while microing your mutas. So get your mutas in, dart around, look for an SCV, a depot, a marine, and at this point, you've got nothing you need to do except build overlords, roaches, and injects behind it. There's no droning, no extra upgrades, so you get to focus fully on your micro here, which is great. So remember, cue the mutas back to the middle of the map and around to the right-hand side. And go macro. Inject, inject, inject.
The heck?
Do that full macro cycle. Come on, inject every
Sorry
hatch.
about that. I had another Discord call come in.
Oh, okay.
I had to cut that up real quick.
Yeah.
I did get that.
Come on. More roaches, more overlords. Yep. So, real important. You go in, do some damage. You cue the mutas to go around. Okay, let's focus on your defense at home.
We're running out of minerals back home.
So, unfortunately, we didn't spot this coming. I was on your camera. I didn't see it either. But we actually, this is like, if we, our Evos never want to be at the front of our base when we're playing roaches like this, with this sort of style. Because they're a wall against our own units. I don't think it mattered because we didn't spot it. If we'd pulled back, made a few ravages, and just kind of backed off there, would have been real nice. We can still try to max roaches and go for a big attack. Unfortunately, we're not going to have 1-1 though, so it's going to be very hard to make it work. But we were actually in a pristine position to take this game. We just saw what happens when your Roach Ravager isn't able to realize the fight's happening, and he's able to kind of walk up to the edge and siege up his units right there. His army gets a lot more effective. So, I mean, you can try to push back out into the middle. Just keep massing only roaches.
I saved all my workers. So
Yep.
I think not
You've
that
got to
bad.
create space for yourself, though. Big problem you have is no map vision right now. You've got to push back out with your roaches and be building non-stop roaches right now. So, like, you really need to get the
You're under
watchtower,
attack.
and you need
Siege
to
up.
be making as many roaches as possible. Looks like he's got too much, though. Yeah, we'll get you. That's cool. It's all good. It's all good. He got you. So go back and rewind. Did you already leave?
Yeah, I'll go into thing afterward.
No worries. Always good to just rewind. Such a good habit.
Watch replay.
So just got to get the build order down there, but you can see the power of just kind of getting your opponent to overreact a little bit with those roaches. If they have a bunker at the front, there's only like one marine in it. Sometimes you can just run past the bunker and be annoying with the roaches. You don't really ever want to lose the roaches. You just want to be annoying and then go home. And it's just like, it just messes up your opponent's build a little bit. You see what this effect has had. Your opponent started building tanks really early. And he's kind of just sitting there and he's not able to exert any pressure, right? Because he's reacting to your opening. And then you get all this freedom to yourself, and then your mutas come in and bully them. So the one thing I want you to really focus on here besides the build order, is if you go to the Mutalisk, I mean, you can open the stream to see what I'm talking about, but just remember that rhythm. Finding rhythm is so important for a macro player, but for this build, there is still a bit of rhythm we need to find. And it's that stage where we're harassing with the mutas. So if we reacted a bit quicker, we could have pulled our mutas home and defended this first drop, but let's go to past that. And it's just that rhythm of micro your mutas. And when you're microing your mutas, you micro it for at most 10-15 seconds, right? Sometimes if you're getting crazy damage, you can keep microing it longer. But like I told you, okay, pull those mutas back and go back to macro at 7 minutes. And you did it, but then we clicked the mutas all the way home. So then we were saying, okay, cool. In future, we're just going to click here, and then we're going to click here. And then we'll go grab those a little bit later after doing inject, build roaches, etc., etc. Let's imagine there's no drop going on. Obviously, you had a lot more to deal with because of that drop. And you just be like, okay, cool. I did all my macro. I built heaps of overlords. And you can build tons of overlords ahead of time with this build as well. Because roaches chew up crazy amounts of supply, as do ravages. And we just want to like be like, well, I'm kind of busy harassing. Let's just build extra overlords. So if you go like 100 out of 180 supply, I'm all for it. I do not care. Obviously, if there's actual drops hitting you while your muta's harassing, it's a different story. But usually they're pinned back, so you can get away with something like that. But the idea is you'd run in, pick off some SCVs, do some damage. When you came in on the left-hand side of the natural, you got the stream open, yeah?
I'm watching it.
Cool. So we're going to see here, you went in and you dove for the mineral SCV. Yeah, these gas SCVs are perfect targets. Now, same thing if you're doing a Ling run by, you're running in with roaches. Whenever you want to target gas workers, always look for the worker that's just popped out and is returning from the gas. A lot of us get discouraged from targeting gas workers because we click on it and we're halfway through killing it. It disappears into the gas guys or in a unit's kind of spaz out. In this case, the mutas then go and fly into the turret, right? But this is perfect. They're so exposed. So if we just kind of click down mutas and, you know, you can magic box them as well, which is clicking underneath the mutas to clump them up. Obviously right now there's a refinery under them. But that'll, if you click underneath them, they all clump together, right? And we could clump over here, and then we could click on this guy, or we could, you know, clump up here, click on a guy as they're coming out. Just make sure you always target those dudes that are coming out because they have to go up to the command center, drop off their load, and back. And that would have been really nice because you only really needed to barely go in the turret range, and then you could have done a little bit more damage. If you're feeling a bit stressed, busy, there's other shit distracting you, absolutely do what you did here, which is just click on the refinery. So often what I'll do here is if I see no real defense around, I will just click on the refinery and I will shift click them to run straight out and then back. That standard format, rotate to the other side every time, right? When they're done harassing. So I'm saying kill the refinery, move here, and then move over here. And I'll grab them later on and send them into the main. Now, obviously that's a risky move if you're not going to monitor them at all, because they've got to kill a 500 hit point structure and get out of there, and you're just hoping Marines aren't going to stim on them or anything like that. But I'll often queue that up, and then I'm like doing other things if there's a lot of other shit going on, and I kind of know they don't really have the mobile anti-air to deal with it. But the important thing is just getting that rhythm down to like micro for 10-15 seconds here, cue them to a new angle, make sure our macro is perfect. Inject, build overlords, build roaches, etc., etc. And that just really helps you get a nice, lovely, smooth opening. Having a little bit of creep spread here would have been splendid. What else? I would probably have left a roach on the watchtower in the middle of the map, right? We had so little map vision, and whilst the mutas give us a lot of vision, we didn't see what was going on. I also wouldn't mind you building 4 or 6 slow zerglings after your mutas are out. Why? Just so we could have a Ling spotter on the third base locations, one outside the base to see it move out, one on the watchtower, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a lot of people
spread about the map.
Yeah, and like we get in this mindset, you're probably the same as me, where you skip Ling speed and you think, well, I'm not building Lings this whole game. There's no point. Like, they're a bad unit, but there's still just such a cheap, efficient scouting unit to just put somewhere, and its purpose is to die and let you know when it dies anyway, right? So try to break out of that mindset of, oh no, can't have any Zerglings. A couple Zerglings is the best map vision you could have. And if they do an attack like this, it is your dream. Like, this is your favorite thing to face. Because if you just make a few Ravages and jump on this before the tanks are sieged, especially if you can have your 1-1 finished, like, you want to fight against this sort of army. You want to fight, you want them to come out, or you want them to go land a third base really early and not have the units to cover. Exactly. Like, because imagine if he took this third, you can kind of see, you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe I could spread some roaches here, here, and tons of roaches like from here and here, and just like attack the natural in the third, and like just a big pre-spread arc, and try to land biles on tanks, and your mutas can come around the edge and try to get any tanks on the high ground and that sort of stuff. Lots of cool shit you can do. Generally speaking, though, you got in a really good position. Your opponent didn't respond to the mutas, so he actually couldn't deal with them too well. Meant he had tanks which are great against roaches, but your mutas were being, extra annoying because he wasn't doing things like building Vikings and putting mines around and building lots of turrets, which some people would do. And if they do that and your mutas get more shut down, more power to your roaches, right? So if your mutas aren't getting damage done, that's okay as long as you're forcing a lot of commitment from your opponent to counteract that. Likewise, if your mutas are getting heaps done, you might have to be a little bit more wary of that ground army, like in that game, where he just kept building lots of Marines, tanks, and went for a nice hard push into you. But yeah, you've got just the right tech for it. So overall, pretty good execution. Should we give it another go?
Yeah, I'm totally down.
All right, so just host up a map. Maybe go Ephemeron. That's kind of the shortest rush distance in the current pool. So yeah, it's probably the best for this build at the moment, just for the roaches being a bit more annoying.
Okay.
A little bit harder to break them in terms of you need to break the rocks on the natural before your roaches can really spill up there, but it's a good attack angle from the third base anyway, so it's all good. So 16 pool, 18 hatch, 17 gas. Let's try and get in the rhythm of this build. I won't tell you everything this game since this is the kind of second time doing it. I'll still pipe in here and there, talk you through it a little bit, but at some points, if you seem like you know what you're doing, I'll just shut up and kind of watch. Get in your rhythm, man. Good luck, have fun. All right, guys. Awesome. This is a really fun style because we are kind of taking the fight to our opponent. We're making life difficult for that Terran. And like I said, there's a lot of things we can change and still use the same ending the game plan, which is mutas piss you off, roaches come and kill you. And that's it. Creep spread. I mean, since we're basically going for a super all-in style where we always want to be fighting on the Terran side of the map, creep spread is one of the lower priorities. Absolutely, as I mentioned, you could have some creep spread, but that's one of the lowest priorities right now. Book Nerd Bob. One of the lowest priorities, right? He's just learned to build the build order. If 2 weeks from now he's been practicing it every day and he's still not spreading even a single tumor, I'd be like, hey, buddy, why don't we throw a tumor on that natural? Since you're always going to have the energy, right? And a single tumor just pushing some creep to like here, maybe one tumor pushing some, even that's just going to make you way better against that sort of push we saw in that last game, right? So yeah, creep is really important if you're playing a defensive style. And that's kind of what I didn't like about that last game. So we were playing Hydra Bane, it's kind of traditionally a defensive unit comp. And it was like, if the opponent kind of knew how to just always have tank siege spread out on ledges and stuff, like we wouldn't be able to break him and we would just eventually lose the game because like if the opponent harasses, we wouldn't be able to keep up with it. So you see here, he's going Roach Horn. 2 Zerglings is the most important thing now. 2 Zerglings. So we built 1 extra drone there, that's fine though. As long as you rally those Zerglings across straight away, looking real good. And then Queen and guys on gas immediately, good stuff. Of course, 1 more Overlord and beautiful. Looking good. Yeah, I'm okay with him just building the roaches off 21 supply. We want to get those roaches over the map as quick as possible. Now, how has he rallied these lings? Okay, that's a shitty rally point. I would actually, yeah, I would have preferred, oh, it worked actually. At least they didn't go this way. So it's not the absolute worst. All good.
A new queen has emerged.
Did he only build 2 roaches? His hatchery on his natural was maybe a little bit late there. Good pullback, but he should have spore tricked that. Terran players are pretty randy, man. Let's get that next queen going. So normally your queen with any pool first build injects and then goes to inject your natural, and you already build another queen in your main to replace it. So in future, we'll get used to queuing that queen up earlier. For now, doing it this way is fine. Extra overlords. And remember, we're getting up to close to 315, so we need to take a lair and a second gas. And lots of overlords and drones behind that. So as these roaches micro in, try to tap it, your production to build an overlord in the middle of the fight. This is a real important skill. Being able to just select your production and build an overlord. He just built drones again, same as last time. Oh no, he got an overlord as well, actually, just before the fight started. And look at that, cancels the bunker again. So our Barcode Terran here taking some damage. And you can poke up and be a real pain in the ass. Yeah, pick off those. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now he should be focusing on his injects. Oh, bounces home and does his injects. Isn't that nice? Yep, cue him out of there. Get out of there with the roaches. You know there's going to be units to defend. Kill the depot, just go home. Focus on your macro. So remember, keep droning up, and we can send a drone over to the third base ahead of time, because we know we'll be saturated soon. We don't need to build it just yet, but keep droning and drop the Spire. So Spire as soon as that layer finishes, and then third base, and then gases on the natural. Beautiful. Looking really nice, man. Keep those injects going and keep powering out those drones and overlords. Beautiful execution, mate. It's a real nice build. Very happy with this, guys.
Right about now, I want my double evo.
No, kind of as the mutas start, if you've got spare minerals, you can go just a little bit before the Spire finishes. But for now, just focus on saturating those gases. Your main needs a few more drones, and you can spread a creep tumor on your natural as well.
Creep bird.
Extra overlords. You got to build those overlords ahead of time because you're going to build those 5 or 6 mutas, those 6 mutas, and then you're going to go into the double evo and the roaches after that. Good stuff.
Okay.
So we always want to prepare extra supply free. Is this more than he needs? 54 out of 68 plus another 3 overlords? Yes, but it's better to do it this way. Make sure we can kind of just have a nice smooth progression. So he hasn't put an overlord down here. So his roaches are running around worrying about a drop coming in. But that's a hole in our vision that shouldn't exist, right? So should go double evo now. Alright, so everything should be rallied to that third, droning, double evo, and roach speed.
Double evo.
So remember, as these mutas should already be queued all the way across the map, which they are, we're going to start 1-1. We're going to just be massing overlords behind this. Remember, just building heaps of overlords just to make our macro easy. Basically go pure overlords, and then we just want 1 gas on the third. And, oh, we do still need a few more drones. We can build, yeah, about 7 or 8 more drones is fine. All right, and now you can get in that rhythm of, you know, basically micro your mutas for about 10-15 seconds, queue them back up to go to the other side, do some macro, and just start bouncing between muta harass and then macro. Beautiful. Is this build order viable versus Protoss and Zerg also?
You're engaging the opponent.
Doing a roach pressure against Zerg's pretty terrible. This sort of one. Against Protoss, also a 3 roach pressure is pretty terrible. Up to a decent level, you could probably get away with it though.
Your forces are taking damage.
Hey there.
Gotta keep 5 mutas alive. Gotta keep 5 mutas alive. Okay, there's no reason for him to still do it. What's he doing? Psychopath. When there's stim marines hot on your tail, guys, you don't need to do that. So he just got a, what we call a no reason boner.
Did I never take that 5th? I didn't. Son of a gun.
We're running out of minerals back home.
He didn't bile. This is the easiest hold of his life. If he stays chill. Oh, he had a really good position there. Yeah, he's got this. He's got this. I'm not going to say anything. He should have just kept fighting that.
We're running out of minerals back home.
You can absolutely break this. You just got to spread your units before you engage and just overwhelm it. So as these roaches pop, just go for it. Yeah, just go. Use the biles.
No, son. I thought I didn't hit anything.
Come on, keep macroing.
Our Our forces
and
are
just
under
non-stop
attack.
mass roaches. We do not have gas for Ravagers. We just need to make a ton of roaches, and we need to push him back from this position. We cannot let him siege tanks here, okay? So you got to push him back to his side of the map a little bit, create a bit of space for yourself.
We're running out of minerals.
And we don't actually want to counterattack, but we just, yeah, clear some space.
Make sure he's leaving.
Build a couple of slow zerglings if you want, but mostly just make a 6th gas on your 3rd base now. Because we lost all of our Ravagers, we're going to need more gas. And we can transfer from your main. So you see how your main's oversaturated?
Yeah.
So we don't really need any more workers, but we can still take a 4th base and just transfer workers to new bases. And we just want a mass roach Ravager. We don't want more upgrades. Your roaches are in a really weird spot. They need to go home right now because you have no vision on the map. That's a really small army. That's
check my check his 3rd real quick.
yeah. You can use your Mutalisk to do that. You still got 1 muta, but you need to be focusing on massing roaches. You want to add some Ravagers to this army. You can leave 1 roach in the middle of the map, or use your Mutalisk for that if you want. But you just need to see if he comes with another push, and you just need to keep injecting and massing those roaches, add a few Ravagers, a few more Overlords, and whenever you feel you're ready, go for another push. And you want to bring an Overseer with your army always. If you don't bring an Overseer, you won't be able to see any tanks on the high ground. You won't be able to scout ahead of the push either. We call that doing a Leenock, and that's where Leenock should have beat Maru when he won his final GSL, when he won 3 GSLs in that year. Leenock should have knocked him out of GSL. And he didn't have an Overseer, and he lost 45 roaches to 1 tank. So we're not going to do that. We're always going to have an Overseer with your army key.
Been there, done that.
Okay, you need to get going, though. See, you're starting 2-2. You're thinking too far ahead. That's all right, but you need to go find an angle. He's got 3 bases of bio tank. Don't get me wrong. Technically, you can play a longer game, but we always want to stick with the strengths of this style, which is aggressive pushing, getting out there, and trying to kill our opponent, okay?
Gotcha.
Good luck. So the longer he gives his opponent, the more they can turtle up with tanks. So one of his problems right now is he's attacking from one angle around a choke point. So he pre-spread, but it didn't really spread in the right angle. And you can see here, he clumps up his units whenever he's trying to focus fire. So there's a big problem there where Muckerman's not... Oh, and like right now, he's engaging workers with half of his army, and he's allowing a single tank to shell him down. So this is real nasty. The double lib tearing him apart. Oh my god. She's tearing me apart. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. Ah.
You're under attack.
That's cool. He just needs more experience with Roach Ravager, to be honest. Need more experience with Roach Ravager. Need to remember
Your base is under attack
to
again.
leave a Roach in the out front of their base to see pushes coming. So with Roach Ravager, guys, what do? Bile on tanks. 3 biles each. Though spamming rapid fire
Your forces are
isn't
taking
too
hit.
bad usually. Always scout ahead of a push with an Overseer to see their setup. Always spread and attack from 2 sides where possible. In this replay, we spread and attacked around a corner into the center of his defense, which was between natural and 3rd. Go back and watch the replay. You should know that's where their army is usually centered. So attacking up the natural ramp at the same time is key. All right, beautiful execution there on that one. Obviously lots of details we need to kind of get used to, but already just such a big improvement and so much kind of control that we have over some stages of the game. So we can go back here and once again open up my stream so you can see my point of view while we get through, do some analysis of that game just to kind of watch the tail end of it. So the first time where we really got excited, we did what I have a very technical strategic term for the move at 6 minutes, about 7 minutes. So we were doing really good with queuing our mutas around, and we kind of ran into these Marines. We're like, oh, he's trying to do a push. And then we got a bit of a no-reason boner, which is we saw Stim Marines and 2 turrets chasing us around, and we should have just pulled back with those mutas and said, woo, let's focus on building roaches and making sure I'm safe at home. But we started diving our mutas around, and we overloaded ourselves, right? Where we started kind of going into these dangerous positions because we felt maybe a bit too much of an urge to get damage done. Always just queue it out. Just queue it back. Queue it back a little bit. You see someone who's stimming their Marines around multiple turrets like that, you'll learn to recognize this with more experience. Your first times, you're always going to dive at the wrong times, and then you're going to see an open mineral line, and you're going to pull back at that time, just because obviously the hardest thing to learn in StarCraft is taking a snapshot of looking at a screen for half a second and identifying, do we go in or do we pull out of that? That's always the thing that takes the most repetitions of the build to learn that kind of intuitive understanding, if that makes sense. Cool. So otherwise, having Ravagers for this sort of push is amazing, but you know what? I'm going to get you to just always take both gases on the third base. Similar worker count. Let's just take both gases because Ravagers chew up so much gas. So let's just turn this into a 6-gas style, okay? It'll just give you a little bit more freedom with that, just to make sure we can make a few extra Ravagers. When his push came, like I said, this sort of push, if we handle it just right, like if we have 3 Ravagers already, what's really cool is we can kind of run forward, and if he sieges the tanks, we bile a tank, pull back, right? And then if he moves forward again, engage, bile a tank, pull back. And all we need to do when we're fighting is attack, move, and try to bile tanks. Now, what happened a lot, and you did it a lot in your bigger fights as well, is you will do your entire control group micro, where you're clicking them forward and trying to target fire tanks. And that's actually really bad because all your roaches get stuck behind each other, but they also clump to the maximum, so tank fire ruins them in the really big engagements. Sometimes in a small fight, it's okay, but what I would rather you do is maybe pre-spread your roaches a little, like just, you know, box half of them and spread them a little bit so they're just a little bit automatically forming a concave before the fight. But even more importantly is if I want to focus a tank, I want you to just manually box a section of the roaches and click on that siege tank. So you're only grabbing the 6, 7, 8 roaches that are closer to the tank. Because I feel like the micro you're doing, sometimes it's paying off really big and other times it's like hurting us because the tank shelling is just getting us. So first engagement here, you can see we clicked here and our units kind of move forward. And I think we're going to go for a bile. Let me see. We're going to go for a target fire. We moved forward, did a target fire. It was a good move. In that scenario, I don't mind you running forward, sniping a tank. No worries, Dr. Ryan. Thank you very much for hanging out. Appreciate that. But we did just pull back a second too early. We should have been dropping a bile as well as doing that, right? As well as target firing there. Or what would have made it even easier is if we just always make sure with this sort of push, we've got 3 Ravagers ready. And then you don't need to move forward and target fire. You can literally just move forward, bile, run away. Move forward, bile, run away. Just makes your life a bit easier rather than relying on the target fire. With this engage, if we've got really good control, we'd change the rally point on the third to down here, and we'd split our Roach Ravager. So half is down there, and half is at our natural, and our main and natural rally points are over here, or even behind the hatchery is what I like to do. If someone's edging in like this, and I'm like, nah, I'd really like to just wait for some upgrades or a few more Roaches and Ravagers, just pulling way back and saying, you've got to really overextend to get in there. Let's look at how this fight went. So we went forward, and he's actually trying to really aggressively move his tanks forward. 2 tanks unsieged. So it is a good time to fight, but you'll notice we kind of moved in, pulled back, then moved back in. Would have been better if we just committed from the start of that fight. And here is where we do one of those selecting the whole armies, whereas I would have loved us to just box these Roaches and Ravagers on the north, maybe shift-click those on those 2 tanks, and then go back to just using the whole control group only to drop biles, right? Just select 2, drop biles, biles. And that would have been quite nice. But you see a lot of those Roaches on the south kind of clumping up here, and then we get a tank, but then we pull back, and very clumped, so it's tank shots. Massive splash. Nonetheless, we end up defending, and let's take a look. If we still had the mutas behind this, by the way, such a good resource, because in the middle of this, whenever there's a lull, like right now, you grab those mutas, and you do that shift click on the refinery I was talking about. We click on the refinery, click back. And you're going to pick off 3 SCVs and the refinery normally because your opponent's far too busy looking at the front to respond to that. They also can hover over the opponent's third base. So if he does something like what he did here, builds a third on location, free kill with the mutas. Another cool move you can do, drop poo out of an overlord on the third because you have a fast layer. I have mixed thoughts on it. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes I don't like to do it because it stops them getting a third as fast, and I kind of want them to move out to a third so that it's easier to attack with the Roach Ravager. So that's like part of my thinking sometimes when I don't do it. But on the other hand, I want to be like, hey, you can't get a third, so they're almost more eager to push out and push me off that third base, right? So by dropping the creep, I'm like, come and get me. So I don't know, I kind of have mixed feelings on that, but just a cute thing you might want to add in there. I think I wrote it down in the notes. Let's see, today. Yes, I did. Good. with that push, by the way, were you surprised when that hit this time? Or because you'd seen the units kind of moving out with your mutas?
Yeah,
were you,
I saw him with the mutas, so I kind of expected it. That's why I went back and made the couple Ravagers, but I didn't have the resources to make more. I would have liked like 5 Ravagers there.
Yeah. So in this sort of scenario, I reckon just putting a roach in the middle of the map or like here would have been really nice. Just to see this push, just to have confirmation. Oh, is he actually pushing out? Because your mutas can't really confirm, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas we could have been sitting there building Ravagers and then like the push never comes. We go, wait, what? What's happening? Right? So it's always nice to know where that push is. Whereas like just when I'm looking at your vision at this whole point, it's just a bit uncomfortable not knowing until he's right there, right? I would much rather know a bit ahead of time, or maybe just push out with my Roach Ravager since they've got Roach speed and just, oh, his army's here, pull back. Oh, that sort of thing. But yeah, anytime you pre-spread, an A move to just break this sort of push is really powerful. So anytime your units are coming in from 2 sides, automatically spread, the tank fire is not as good. I mean, all you need to do is drop biles by spreading them across the bio and trying to concentrate them on tanks whenever they're in reach. The other really cool move you could do is if you saw this push coming ahead of time, you could have had like 14 roaches all there and just kept your Ravagers and the new eggs popping out on the natural and just tried to slow him down with those units with like biles and pulling back and stuff, but then just be ready to both cut off reinforcements. So as soon as he sieges up where he is now, your roaches from behind or on a different control group go from behind, and then when you're ready, you just attack from both sides at once, and it's really easy to take the tanks out that way. You'll get a much more cost-efficient engagement. So when you spot a push this far ahead of time, you can definitely do some cool moves like that. As it was, I think it was playable from here. Now, I kind of really push you to go, get him, get him, get him kind of thing. So let's go to the final push of this game, and let's take a look at this. So the reason I told you to pull back here is because we were blind. Even though it would have been good to go in and cancel that third, the problem was you didn't have any vision in the middle of the map. And I just kind of wanted you to be like, hey, let's actually add some Ravagers, get some more Roaches. Because if we go in there to get that third and then suddenly a whole pack of Biostims on us, 15 Roaches on its own is really not a very powerful force. A few of them are bruised. So I kind of wanted us to just get a little bit more vision of what's going on. So a cool thing with the Overseers is if we could have morphed this Overseer ahead of time and just kind of either put that on pervert mode on that pillar or just gone in and checked the third and kind of see what the setup was, that would have been really nice. And then when we come in with the follow-up push, if we can send changelings in ahead of time to see where stuff is, that's amazing. Or if we have the mutas alive, the mutas can kind of just skirt around and see what's up. So once again, the power of keeping those mutas alive to go, hey, where's his setup at? And what's really cool here is you pre-spread before this attack. What I didn't like, though, is we weren't thinking about where his defense would be quite as much. If his army happened to be up where this tank is, that would be great. But usually their army will be where his army was in this case. So that means we should instead be spread here. So some Roaches and Ravagers here, even though that's a pretty narrow ramp, we could still have 15 Roaches there and the rest here. Because this spread, whilst it looks nice, to actually get to his army, which is the most important thing to kind of collapse on top of really quickly, right? Get rid of the tanks, get rid of the bio. We're going to need to curve around a corner. And anytime your units curve around a corner, they're all just going to clump back up again. In this case, that didn't happen. I thought it was going to happen. Then I realized there was this tank on the north, and I was like, oh, that's almost just as bad because our army ends up splitting up. So notice how a few Roaches get trickled down into his setup, and we go forward and get a tank, which is not bad. But then most of our Roaches and Ravagers are kind of engaging the SCVs. Now, one way we could have done this was grabbing all this Roach Ravager, pulling it back, grabbing this Roach Ravager, pulling it up behind the mineral line, and hoping that we can bait him further up into the open, where the Roaches that are gathering here and that we've pulled back over here, as well as the Roaches from here, can kind of all jump on top of him and get towards the tanks. But right now, we're all kind of choked up behind each other, essentially spread out in a long column in terms of direction towards the siege tanks, or only one siege tank that's actually sieged. So we'd much rather be trying to always think about your setup in terms of if we'd pre-spread from there and almost just ignored the tank on the top or simply dropped a few biles on it rather than clicking all of our Roach Ravager up there, remember? Maybe we've just boxed a few Roaches and click them on it, right? Trying to not send our whole army after it. I want you to do a much more set up a flank and then just A-move your units and only do a little bit of manual control. Box a few Roaches and Ravagers, click them on a tank. Other than that, only dropping biles, no move commands, no target fires with your entire army. So if we can break the habit of controlling the whole army only use the whole army for the biles, and do much more set up everything, go for the A move, drop biles, and then only target fire and micro with manual boxing control. And that's like a really good habit to build. That'll be awesome for you.
Cool.
Awesome. The double liberator was a friggin' nightmare timing-wise, by the way. Wasn't that just perfect from him? It was literally like, as we pull the trigger on our attack to live siege up, this is a Terran's dream.
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, this is such a scary push, but...
And I never expected it, so I didn't have the spores to move under it like I would.
Yep. If we saw that coming, that would have been big. So, I mean, that being said, we did mess up our Overlord vision a little bit, right? So, should have had Overlords on these edges. Earlier on in the game, you were thinking about a Marine drop and your roaches were running around in your main base. But we just had this whole dark vision down here. So we should have had those Overlords just on these edges. Just 1 or 2 Overlords out there, 1 or 2 Overlords out here. And that maybe would have given us a bit more warning. Because if we actually look at this assault, you know what would have been really cool is if we spotted those libs, and we actually did see that one going across in the north. Well, actually, maybe we saw both. But if we'd noticed both of those, I would definitely pause the attack, right? I'd be like, oh, build a spore at each base, move the queens out front of the hatch to try and intercept them. Okay, now I can do my attack, right? Just try to make sure I'm not going to have to deal with 3 situations at once, which is incredibly hard, man. Incredibly hard. The double liberator queue up is a really powerful move. Awesome. So what are your thoughts so far on the build? Is there any kind of scenarios that are popping up into your head that you're not sure of?
The only thing I can't really see working out is if they go like a quick 2 factory with like heavy tank production and they try to push it toward the late game where I would take it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the thing is, it's your job to disrupt them with the roaches and then the mutas. And it's very rare, even in that game where he decided to stay on tanks, it's very rare for someone to be able to get up to 2 factory tanks because you're messing them up multiple times, often before the 4th and 5th barracks is even down. So they haven't even finished their 2-base production. Absolutely just locking everything down with really totally tank play is good. But you've got to remember from the Terran side of things, they are worried about you as a Zerg player going Mutiling Bane off the mutas, going into Hive Tech. The same way the mutas blossoming and growing into a crazy count scares them, that often encourages them to build Vikings and mines and that sort of stuff, right? So it's very hard for the Terran to know what's happening. And don't get me wrong, we're doing a pretty cheesy play, right? We're just like, surprise you with some roaches, surprise you with some mutas. Bam, back into Roach Ravager, throw it, punch our opponent in the face. It's a cheeky play, but it's very hard for our opponent to know what's going on. We're constantly scouting what they're doing. Technically, a super advanced reaction would be like, I see that this guy's really shut down my mutas. He's very safe. He's got tanks on the high ground. He's playing really careful. I'm actually going to drone up my 3rd and 4th and go for Broodlords and do a later Broodlord timing. But I don't think you really need to think that far ahead until you've got months and months of experience with this build.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's such a rare scenario that they're going to actually be able to lock it down. And often, even if they're trying to do that, you'll catch them with a few of those tanks just a bit too exposed, or the mutas will come in on the high ground and grab 1 or 2 of the tanks. Lots of cool things that can happen. So definitely with any aggressive play, there's always an answer. And I like that you're already thinking ahead and you're visualizing someone with really good wall-offs and tank placement. Actually, the big play against a Roach Ravager timing is to pull all the SCVs off the 3rd as well. Anything they can do to stop you getting on top of the tanks and to kind of keep you away from the bio for just a little bit more damage output to get down, they can lose every SCV on their 3rd and still be ahead if they're making 2-2 and if they're, making more tanks and more bio, because at a certain point your Roach Ravager doesn't scale very well. So definitely there are answers from the Terran, but yeah, I think
our goal was just hit it hard, hit it fast enough that they don't have time to get that up.
Yeah, and hopefully they're reeling from the previous blows. And I mean, I often with this build, I still do this sometimes. They're just surprised. You just run in and kill them, and they're like, "Whoa, what? Oh, we're already up to the Roach Ravager hitting me? How the hell?" So it can really mess their build up. It's very hard for Terran players to adapt when you're throwing a lot of little pressures at them like this. So it's a nice way to mess up your opponent. GG, well played. Thank you for the help, Mr. Barcode. Appreciate it. If you guys want to play some more games, definitely play some more. I'm going to finish my stream now. But yeah, good session, man. So good luck with your ZvT. I like that we're doing a kind of funky, fun style.
I'm glad. My ZvT feels so off as it is right now. Before we go, real quick, do you mind just touching on macro hatches? Because that's something I still kind of don't understand. I usually just end up throwing down more bases, and then they just kind of get shut down.
I mean, I like more bases instead of macro hatches, but I mean, you're not really a player who spreads a lot of creep. So with any heavy Ling style, it's kind of hard for you. With creep, not as much of a focus. Generally, any Ling Bane focus style, having a macro hatch is a good idea. Any style where you power up your minerals really hard. So what I saw with your ZvT earlier is you could probably get away without ever having a macro hatch because you were rushing your gas and your hydras and your Bane speed and you were doing more of a technical army. But if you were to rush heavy mineral saturation on 3-4 bases and really go heavy on the Zerglings, that's when you want to be plopping down probably 2 macro hatches, or just taking a ton of bases depending on what works for you. Yeah, usually you'd have it built into your build order. So like my rule of 1 gas ZvT, you go for your 4th base and your macro hatch around the same time. And what you'd actually have is all your creep queens. You will actually have a moment there when those finish where they have stacked up energy because you've already got so many creep shimmers down and you've got like 8 queens. And those queens will go and they will stack up many, many injects on both your 4th base and your macro hatch. Because I don't like to actually inject all my macro hatcheries or my 4th base or anything like that. But if I can just queue up a ton of injects at like the 7-minute mark when there's a lull in the pressure of the game, I'm like, cool, those are fountains of lava now, right? It's like a fountain of life, fountain of lava, because we've got like 7 injects queued up on the macro hatch and the 4th base. Like that's going to give me basically non-stop Ling Bane production till the 15-minute mark, which is awesome.
Nice. Okay. That helps. Thank you.
All right, no worries, man. All right, I got to run. But yeah, good luck in your practice. Record any issues, problems, save replays and stuff. And yeah, just remember, really activate your cheeky brain. With this one, it's a cheeky play, and as you get, first of all, just start out with the build and be pretty generic with it and just find your rhythm. But as you get better at it, start looking for, you know, what your opponents are doing and where little adjustments can maybe make a big difference. So I'm sure we can revisit this in the future, and see what clever twists we could make on the build to really make it work well.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, mate. I'll see you around.
All right, have a good night, brother.
Peace out, you too.
Nice. GG's. So that's good. I like it. We've got a cheeky ZvT style there.